And we're live. Happy Friday, everyone. Today, well, let's see, it's June 14th. I'm Brady Volpe, founder of the Volpe firm and Nimble This, and we're back with another episode of Get Your Tech On. We're going to talk about a presentation I gave at the Dakota Territory, and then we're going to focus on John and I. So John's here with us again. We'll show you his mug in just a moment. We were in Angacom, the big trade show in Germany that occurs every year in June. We'll talk a little bit about that and some of the things we saw. So first, let me welcome back my guest, John Downey. John, how you doing? Good to see you.
Good, good. I'm on a much faster connection. Spectrum, shout out to Spectrum, the old Time Warner system in Wilmington, North Carolina. 200 meg down, 15 meg up. So I'm doing everything through the computer. No satellite, much faster reaction, obviously.
Man, this is like a real treat. There's no jerkiness. We can hear your voice. This is outstanding. For the first time, we probably won't get any complaints about your audio and video from our users. So
Yeah, it is funny because, in Germany, some people came up to me and they said, yeah, I seen you in Google Hangout, really love what you guys are doing. I get to listen to it and, get up to date with what's going on with DOCSIS. Says, but man, your video is bad. Like, you know, I do the audio through the phone and I guess it should have occurred to me, but my video obviously is going to be slow as crap because it's coming through the uplink.
yeah, well, it's
So
now they get to see in HD now in
So
Germany.
people probably can hear me talking, but the video coming through of my lips are probably like 3 seconds behind.
No, it's good. You got good video and good audio. So yeah, it's good to see you, man.
Hey, I see it's episode 48. So happy, almost like basically 40
Almost
years.
50, yeah, almost 50 episodes coming up
Yeah.
soon. So I want to give a shout out to the Dakota chapter, SCT Dakota chapter. I was there, I think about 2 weeks before the Angus show, and gave a presentation on a lot of things. It was proactive network maintenance. It was PNM and DOCSIS 3.1. These guys had phenomenal turnout. Also speaking after me, you can see that, well, this is, they gave me a nice little gift for presenting there. And then also after me, you can see the presentation back there. Patrick Hunter from Charter gave a presentation on IP, and he did a phenomenal job because he basically just broke down what it takes to send hi, just the letters HI through email, all the way, just the IP data of it, and did a fantastic job because it's a really difficult topic to go through to do that. But he also did a fantastic job after me. And then after the morning presentation, they had like a vendor day. They had the cable games. They had cable Jeopardy. These guys did just a fantastic job. Huge turnout. So I want to give a big shout out, big thumbs up to these guys for putting on an excellent vendors day, and really appreciate them inviting me to be able to present and participate in the whole day. So fantastic job to those guys. Big shout out to them.
Yeah, very nice. I like to see Cisco's sign right there.
Yeah, yeah. So we had Cisco there, but there wasn't really many people there. So they they did have a booth at the vendor day. Just not a lot of people in the booth there,
Yeah.
John. So we could have used you. I know you were
I was supposed to
invited.
be there. Yeah, I know. I was supposed to be there with you, and I had something going on that week, so I knew it wasn't going to work out.
Yeah,
It
it
would
would
have
have
been
been a
nice.
good duo if you could have made it. So too bad you couldn't be there. So next up, Angacom. I know you were at Angacom. We were talking about traveling back and stuff like that. I have some slides from Angacom just for people that haven't had an opportunity to be at Angacom before. But let me cue those slides up here. So back here, coming into Angacom. So Angacom, if you've ever been to SCT Expo, the booths look a lot the same. The people are a lot the same. I would say the big difference between Angacom and SCT Expo is beer. There's a lot more beer available
Definitely.
on there. So
Definitely.
yeah, kind of. I think people might dress up a little bit more. So I'm in a sports jacket, which normally at Expo I don't have a sports jacket on. Well, there's you and I. So we visited your booth. And
I had a button-down shirt, so you knew it was dress up.
yeah, this is a big deal for you, man. So yeah, I mean, you guys were talking about low latency DOCSIS. You're talking about 3.1, RFI. and that was a big theme at the show. Low latency DOCSIS, virtualization, R5 3.1. I think those were like the big themes. Which I do want to talk a little bit about low latency DOCSIS after we get through these slides here, because I think that's something that was quite popular.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything you want to say about your node there. I think this was an important node for you.
That one actually had more traction than almost all the demos because it supports the flexible Mac architecture, FMA.
That's what this little yellow thing is, right?
Yeah, that gold device is a prototype cloud native software. Like basically take the core, put it on an FPGA, plug it in with an RPD, and put it in a node. So basically, it's like saying that's a CMTS right there inside the node.
How much does that gold plating cost on there? Is that extra? Can I get it in just like aluminum, like the Apple Watch?
And that's why it's prototype. It's actually a big heat sink, and there's even a fan built into that thing to offset that heat. I mean, the reason why it's a prototype is one, in the U.S. we're still limited to 160 watts total per node, and that extra cloud native FPGA is jacking us up probably to 200 watts. So, I mean, it's something that would have to be cut down to an ASIC, but it's proving that you could basically do flexible Mac PHY, or Mac architecture with a remote PHY, and you basically turn a CMTS into a node, or a node into a CMTS. And did you hear the other news? The only vendor who was really doing a remote CMTS was Huawei, and they just decided to get out of it.
Yeah, Huawei had a much smaller booth this year than they've had in the past.
Yeah, they announced during the show that they're
getting out of it, out of CMTS altogether, or just out of
I believe so. So
dang, that's big news. I actually did not hear that news there.
Yeah. So I bet you we can look it up right now and you can find it.
Yeah, well, I'll take your word for it. But that's interesting news. So, okay, so your Mac PHY, you should really have Johnny Ives do. Look at these chamfered gold aluminum sides. This is and it talks to the cloud, and can't do anything like him. But so what does this talk to? It talks back to the head end, just to a switch, then, because this is the whole CMTS, right?
And remember, your remote PHY basically replaces the head end, right? Yeah. All your RF is being created at the node. Everything that you would have in head end is being created at the node. So it's digital back, 10 gigabit Ethernet going into routers and switches.
So how much of this is smoke and mirrors, and when is this thing actually going to be available?
I think it all comes down, and I'm not a business guy or a sales guy, which is great because then I don't have to do sales and and promise things that can't be delivered. I just look at solutions and technology, but I also realize that you don't deploy technology for the sake of technology. There has to be money behind it. So this would be more like, here's the idea, what's the supply and demand? If we had a big customer come and say, oh, that's awesome, we're going to redo our HFC plant next year, and I'd like to incorporate this. Well, okay, we'll build it. So that's what it's going to come down to. Same thing as John Chapman preaching at the SCT Expo last year about FDX +1, where we could design a line extender with echo cancellation. That's really to get the industry to bite, right? To say, who wants to build this? Just because they're not going to build it, but here's the information, and here's what we could do for the industry. Question is, who wants to jump on it? Who wants to make it? Is there margins for it? Yes or no?
Yeah, Chapman was also talking about 20G or something. Wasn't that something that he has going on?
Yeah, it was 3. So you would hear the term 3 gigahertz taps. So it would be, I think the term was HOT, like hybrid active tap, where the tap itself, you can run 3 gigahertz down coax, but obviously not very far. But you could have taps that had active devices to bump the gain back up. And you could have active taps, if you will. So we could get out to 3 gigahertz. So, the push for ESD, extended spectrum DOCSIS, is 1.8, because DOCSIS 3.1 had a must for 1.218 gigahertz, and it had a must, and then it had a MAY for 1.794 gigahertz. So most people say 1.8 gigahertz ESD, extended spectrum DOCSIS. But if you can do 1.8, maybe we should look at 3 gigahertz. And if we extend the downstream as far as we can at 3 gigahertz, granted, can't go as far in coax, but we might be able to design It's still kind of an HFC hybrid fiber coax network that's still cheaper than fiber to the home. And it's weird because I thought, once you start changing out actives and taps and maybe replacing a little bit of coax, I don't know, why not just do fiber to the home? Well, it's turning out that fiber to the home is still cost prohibitive if you had to put fiber into the house.
Right.
You're talking about right-of-ways, you're talking about digging up someone's yard, synchronizing with their schedule to get into their house. There's a lot more to it than you and I might even think about.
Right. Hey, I just want to give a shout out to Brian Wilson, listening on here. It says Nokia has one. Yeah, they have a remote Mac Fi. Saying gain speed. Unfortunately, I didn't see these guys at Angacom, so and I tried to make sure I got to everyone's booth. So sorry, Brian, that I didn't see those guys. And I also want to give a shout out to the Carsonator, John. He does say we're getting some echo from you, so if you have a pair of headphones, you might want to throw them on. Unfortunately, I'm not hearing the echo, so but it might be coming to the other people. So if you have a pair, stick them in your ear, man. We'll clean it up for the listeners out there.
Let me think about that. All right, you continue on. I'm going to see if I have a pair.
I'm gonna continue on with some of the slides again that we have here. So after we went to the Cisco booth, we did go on and we talked. We saw all the vendors out there. So Harmonic, they had also were a big focus on low latency DOCSIS, and of course Harmonic is doing a great job on virtualization. You can see the Casa booth in the background here. We also hit them up. They were focused on low latency DOCSIS and also virtualization. This was a huge theme at the show. Then this is one of our partners, Zcorum. This is Art Skinner. He's of course promoting our proactive network maintenance application, doing lots of demos on that. And then our other partner, VX, they were also demoing our proactive network maintenance application. You can see that in the background. It's branded VX Vision. And a good friend of mine here, Mike Collins, was there. And then, of course, DOCSIS 3.1, all plastered everywhere. Just about everyone had DOCSIS 3.1 signs in one way or another. I gave a presentation at ANGA on proactive network maintenance, of course, and during the presentation, Dr. Alberto Campos of Cable Labs asked a question on PNM, and it was just flattering to have that happen because he, of course, is like the main inventor of proactive network maintenance. So he was in there during the panel, and of course, this is just a picture of the panel and the other speakers. So you kind of see the way that ANGA sets up these panels. They do a very professional job of setting up the Prevent panels with having moderators and speakers. Super great job on that. And again, this is another, just watching a demo of, I can't remember who this was. It was this is Casa giving their low latency DOCSIS demo. So again, low latency, just a huge theme. And I always stop in and see Bo Kronbach. They do return path monitoring. They do a lot with NDR and NDF. And that's, if you're not familiar with that, that's the out of band way of communicating from the CMTS in the head end to the remote PHY. So remember, in DOCSIS 3.1, there's not an RF connection like a coax connection between the CMTS and the remote PHY. It's all done over IP data. It's called the CIN. And so if you want to get analog signals from the head end to the remote PHY, it can be quite difficult. Bo Kronbach has a great device, which I've shown here. Check out Kronbach Tracers. He's from Denmark. Awesome guy, awesome products. We're looking at also working with some of the stuff that he's doing, but he'll also be at SCT Expo if anyone's going to that. He's great stuff for working with remote PHY and getting your analog signals from the head end and back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, John.
All right.
Hey, the Carsonator said thanks, man. So Carsonator's he really appreciates the headphones.
So the one thing I noticed in Germany is a lot of places still require FM carriage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's part of the problem, right? So 88 to 108 FM, how do you carry that? And I think Cronbach is one of the solutions, right? So you basically digitize it and send it over an IP stream, and then the NDF NDR, narrowband digital reverse, narrowband digital forward, it actually allows RPD to regenerate the signal.
Yeah, so that's how he got started with working in NDR NDF. He was mainly working with the NDF, the narrowband digital forward. for the European market so they could still carry FM channels in the forward path when working with remote PHYs. And then he saw there was an opportunity to start doing the same with the reverse because people still want to look at return path spectrum analysis, and there's a lot of challenges. We're working on, we do that with software, but the amount of data that comes back is a lot of data really fast. And so he has a product where if you're not using it with software, you can use it with his hardware. That's this box over here on the right. He was just debuting it at Anglicom, so it was getting a lot of interest on that. We think it's really interesting because some things you can do better in hardware than you can in software. So we're going to take a look at his product and see what we can do with it as well. So very cool stuff from Bo.
So you said that Mr. Campos, Dr. Campos, had a question for you. So you can't just throw out that softball without me hitting it or trying to hit it. So what was the question? Yeah, it had to be good, or it was simple that he already knew, but he was setting you up.
Well, it was more along the lines of how do we get the different silos, particularly in a European market, to work to collaborate together in order to integrate P&M into their systems, because I think the European market hasn't had the sort of the Comcast of the world to say, how is P&M successful? How is P&M making your organization more effective and efficient? And so European market's been a little bit slower to embrace P&M compared to the North American market than even South American market. So,
and if you think about it, they probably need it more because a lot of the markets in Europe is a bad, poor upstream, noisier.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, but I think that the challenges for the European market is so much that a plant is buried. So if you do have an impairment, it's not like you can just pull the tap faceplate off and or just even visually inspect it. Their taps are actually buried underground. So if you want to know if a tap is bad, we can see that with P&M, and then you have much greater confidence in digging that buried tap up because it's bad by looking at the impairments with P&M. So that's some of the benefit that they can get from that.
Yeah.
So, all right, so moving on from Bo's booth, we went and hit the Aris booth. We see our good friend Tal, who's been on the show before. Aris also, they are doing the same thing. They're have new products out, but they are also talking a lot about low latency DOCSIS, and they by far had my favorite demo with low latency DOCSIS because they were talking about gaming and the impact on gaming. And actually, I will say a lot of the vendors were, as opposed to last year where they were saying the impacts of low latency DOCSIS on 5G. Now they're really getting pressure from gamers, and they're even Cable Labs is showing once you get below about 10 milliseconds, there's anything below 10 milliseconds has no impact on gamers, but above 10 milliseconds they really show the difference of the impact on gamers, like how one gamer will always win against the other gamer if their latency is below 10 milliseconds, and the other gamers in a 25 or 50 millisecond range, that's the impact. That gamer is always going to have a negative experience. And so I like the visual because they were showing, one gamer going against another, always losing every single time because he doesn't see the guy coming around the corner in time, so he's going to get shot. So that was just sort of the visualization. And because I've been a gamer all my life, and I like games, but I also hate losing games because of latency or lag, as normally it's called in the gaming world. I can really see this as being a selling or marketing feature for cable operators when you have the ability to say, look, we can guarantee you low latency, and that actually being something as a marketing thing. We've seen in studies more recently where the average gaming age is about the median gaming age is 27 years old. So it's gaming is not something that's for 11 years and 12-year-olds anymore. It's actually a much older age. People with 27 years old, they have money. They can make the decisions of whether or not what operator they're going to go with. So I like the fact that we're starting to focus more on actual practical applications like gaming, where this will make a decision of whether or not I choose one operator over the other.
What's interesting about that, I think, is I think we've always had the capability to tag or give higher priority to different service flows. This is more on the queue management. has nothing to do with the SYN, distance, or DOCSIS request grant cycle, because all that stuff is less than 10 milliseconds. The only reason why you would be more than 10 milliseconds would probably be the queuing of the packets, and they're not being guaranteed over maybe a best effort flow. So this would be saying, all right, I have a service flow that I want to give lower latency to, so I don't want to hide behind best effort service flow. And I'm in a house that has 5 devices, my kids, me, my wife, everyone's doing something. How do I give this service flow high priority?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're talking about here for gaming. Because when you mention, 10 milliseconds, I'm like, I can turn around a request grant cycle in a DOCSIS network in 4 milliseconds at almost worst case. Even if it's a remote PHY with a SYN, convergent interconnect network of digital fiber that's 1,000 kilometers, I could probably still turn it around under 10 milliseconds.
Yeah, but you can't. What I saw and what was really impressive in some of the demos is you can't. You could guarantee. You can't guarantee it. You can do 10 milliseconds typical, but let's say someone does a speed test or someone does a big download at the same time. That 10 milliseconds can really quickly jump up to 100 milliseconds and then drop down.
With the queuing and priority.
Yeah.
Right. You're getting capacity, you're getting saturation. So how do I guarantee more priority to this flow over another flow?
Right. So that's those were the things that I found really interesting. Now that we're really starting to focus on like how can we keep it under a certain level, irregardless of whether there's a big data spike or a speed test or someone starts downloading Netflix, it just stays that constant level. So there's like 3 different parameters that people are looking at, as I understand, for low latency. They're changing mini slot times. They're looking at AQM. And they're looking at the PGM flows. So PGS flows. Yeah. So reducing the mini slots. So typically mini slot size are like 2 or 4 or 8. They're microseconds, right, for mini slots. So now we're seeing like sub milliseconds.
Let me quantify that, because as I just mentioned, the downstream maps, how it's not mini slots, it's downstream maps. How quickly do I send them? The cable modem makes a request on the upstream, downstream map has the data grant, and then the modem sends. So you have request grant cycle. And by going finer granularity on your maps, you might be able to turn around a request grant a little bit quicker, even if the next request is piggybacked in the data and all this other stuff. I've done a lot of stuff with request grant and per modem upstream throughput and all that. And as I just mentioned, that request grant cycle is much lower than 10 milliseconds. The idea of going to a 1 millisecond map is twofold. One, I want to get less than 1 millisecond request grant cycle. Well, you just said I need something under 10 milliseconds. Well, gaming, I can do that with a normal. I don't need the 1 millisecond map to do that. I could do a 4 millisecond map, and I probably, request grant could be every other map, which would be 8 milliseconds, still under 10. Mm-hmm. So the 1 millisecond map is actually more slated towards 5G, because they have such a tight tolerance for timing, like 1 millisecond. So the PGS makes sense because proactive grants.
Well, so we talked about the mini slots, and I think that's kind of like the first level, right?
It's the map messages. It's the downstream map messages.
So that's kind of like the first level of how we can get to low latency. Now the next thing we can add in is what you're calling PGS, which is a lot of us might be familiar with UGS, which is the unsolicited service grants, right? Yep. Or unsolicited grant service.
Yep.
So what you're talking about with PGS, the P is for predictive or
proactive.
I love the proactive.
Yeah, proactive grant service. So it's like UGS. The thing I kind of don't like about PGS is it's a service flow designation that you'd have to do in the CM file. It's not like some generic CMTS config.
So I talked about that a little bit with some people. It's not something that we want to have pinned up all the time, because that's always going to eat up upstream. It has to be something that's dynamic.
UGS. Yeah, like DQuas and UGS. You'd want it to be able to like work through packet multimedia or something like that, where the gaming flow pops up, it assigns it a PGS flow, and now I make a request to kind of start it up like UGS, and then I proactively give it grants.
How do we tech that? How do we know that how does someone know that I'm sitting down and playing Fortnite and now it's going to start giving me PGS packets to
Therein
accommodate
lies the question marks, right? Therein lies the question marks. Like, who do we trust to assign it? So I suspect we're going to end up nailing it up and not being dynamic. Can we nail it up?
that. Sucks.
And
I
yeah,
cable operators aren't going to want to do that, and
I
then
know.
I'm not going to get my PGS flows.
So it is a good question. Like, if I was hanging up 5G microcells and it had a DOCSIS 3.1 modem assigned to it, then it's not really an end customer, right? It's not a residential customer.
Yeah.
It's a microcell. So I could nail it up for those devices because I have minimum number of devices and no one's doing anything else other than cell phone backhaul for that modem. So I could do it that way, right?
So it almost sounds like PGS is made for dedicated use purposes, like, oh, I've got a 5G microcell, we're going to give that a PGS, but the gamers aren't going to get PGS.
And then back to your 1 millisecond map, and I'm always concerned about downstream overhead of map traffic because every downstream primary has map traffic. It's overhead. You're eating away your downstream throughput to support more upstreams. And if you double the maps, you just double the amount of overhead.
Yeah.
The key here is we're only going to double the maps every 1 millisecond for an OFDMA upstream. So when you do OFDMA upstream, DOCSIS 3.1, it's a faster pipe, which means if I have a bunch of upstream packets, in time, a faster pipe makes it less time. So now I can do request grant, and that serialization time is real small. That 1 millisecond map makes more sense for an OFDMA upstream. They kind of go hand in hand.
Right.
So if I still have single carrier QAM ATDMA upstreams, they'll still do a 2 millisecond map. The only 1 millisecond map I'll have is for the OFDMA. And then I have a faster upstream, I have a faster turnaround time, I could use PGS. So there's a lot of things that come together. Now the question is, how do we really operationalize it? How do we tag the proper service flows? All that stuff is yet to be seen. You know, it'll be one of those cookie cutter best practice. Here you go. You know, here's how we really do it.
All right, so what about AQM? That's adaptive queue management?
Active queue management.
Active queue management. So how does that play in then?
So people asked us about that because it's part of DOCSIS 3.1, and I talked to our own engineers, and they're like, it's a modem thing, so the modem has to support it. The CMTS-wise, it just passes it through for the cable modem for, I believe, upstream? I can't remember. But I found out that AQM was like this first step to get lower latency, but the new PGS, 1 millisecond map, like you talked about, active queue or queue, multiple queue flows that maybe Eric talked about, or even who was the other guy you talked with?
Harmonic?
Harmonic, yeah. They probably talked about queue management more than anything. Those things kind of, do I use the word trump?
I use that word when I was over in Europe, and they're like, that's not a good word to use.
We used to use it all the time, right?
I know. It's fine.
It supersedes.
Trump is fine. It trumps it, yeah.
It negates the need. Hey man, that's a good word. Negate and trump. It means negate. Negative. So these other new things negate the need for HUM.
Yeah.
That's kind of my point.
All right. So yeah. So when I talked to all the vendors, it does seem like they're using different methods to achieve low latency, but everyone is focused on low latency right now. I think that's going to be good for the industry overall.
It's one of those key buzzwords now.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. If you talk to someone at the show, low latency came up. So, and if you talk to my good friend Cyril here, we've been friends for a long time, especially after the beer started flowing. Who knows what else came up? So that's also something about the Angacom show, that about 4 or 5 p.m. the conversations start to go off of technology and more into social type things because beer starts flowing. Gaiax, I did stop by their booth. They're starting to do a lot of cool things now. So these are the guys, John, that I've talked about before that have the large SC QAM above a gigahertz, and they're running 10 gig Ethernet. But this is their product right now that just does that currently. So they have some head end stuff. Then they have the modules that go in the amplifiers, but they've been making them much smaller now and putting them ASIC. So what used to be big is now so small. This is an amplifier, or this is not an amplifier. I apologize. This is what they call a sidecar that goes right beside an amplifier. So you have the coax comes in at the bottom. goes into here. This injects your 10 gig onto the coax at the higher frequencies, and then it comes out at the bottom and then would go into the amplifier. So this is how we're basically injecting 10 gigabit Ethernet over coax. But their goal is they're making this so small, and it also, because now they're using ASICs instead of FPGAs, it's also consuming very little power.
Well, would you consider this an overlay network?
Yeah, absolutely, it's an overlay network. So it can, but the thing is, and I know
it saves us from running fiber deeper by allowing us to utilize the existing coax. And in Germany, in Europe, there's a lot of underground coax, and we can't afford to probably dig it up and put fiber. So how do we get faster speeds on coax, right?
Well, it's not just European market. We're looking at it here. I know like Jeff Finkelstein is looking at this. I know some Charter folks are looking at this, so Cox, Charter, because Comcast is the first that's trying to go to Node plus 0, but a number of the other operators just find that it's really expensive to try to go Node plus 0. But they still want to put an RPD at the end of a cascade of amplifiers. And if you want to put an RPD at the end of a cascade, remote PHY device at the end of a cascade of amplifiers, you need 10 gig at the end of that cascade. And this technology gives you the ability to have 10 gig at the end of the cascade of amplifiers, because you have very small devices that eventually will just go in the lid of amplifiers. Right now you put this amplifier this module right beside the amplifiers. You put it in line, and you have a 10 gig overlay. Eventually, they're working to get this small enough where you can just go right into the lid of the amplifier, the fiber nodes, the amplifiers, so you can transport it down the whole cascade. So, I mean, I think we'll also be seeing this in the U.S. market in the near future.
Do you feel like it's more of a play for underground? Like if I had an aerial, when I just run fiber, like a stub cable?
I don't know. I think there's opportunities for both, where this could be both aerial and underground.
And let's look at it. Let's be honest here and transparent. It's still RF. It's still coax.
Yeah.
You have to modulate a signal just like DOCSIS does. They're doing it up in the MoCA frequencies above 1 gigahertz. The channel itself that they're modulating might be huge. It's not a 6 megahertz wide channel.
It's like 200. 200 megahertz.
Is it that much, or is it more? I can't remember.
Yeah, it could be more. I know it's at least 200 megahertz, because I know one of the things they were talking about is some operators are considering knocking out channels and putting this sub 1 gigahertz. So they'll run it in a lower frequency. They're not constrained to running above a gigahertz. They could run right in the base, or right in the main broadband where we typically run channels.
Yeah.
So
it's weird. It's like, wait a minute, doesn't DOCSIS 3.1 do the same thing? We modulate a signal, we send it over RF. So how is this any better? One, it's going higher frequency, but if we put it below 1 gig, couldn't we still just do it with DOCSIS?
Yeah.
And if the RF works, the RF works. Here, if we go above 1 gig, it's still an RF signal. It's modulated. It has to be regenerated, amplified, if you will, because of the coax loss. So if I go through a lot of coax, I might have to regenerate every so many feet. I still have RF attenuation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's going to run into the same issues that you have with 3.1. And I think that's one of the things they were talking about is, this is not meant to be a 3.1 replacement. It's meant to augment it. It's meant to overlay it.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I think it definitely has a place, and it's always better to have more options than none,
Yep. So that was the Angus show. That was, that's pretty much what happened over there. And the technologies, like I said, I think low latency seemed to be the big thing that everyone is focusing on right now.
Well, how do you did you hear anything about FDX at all?
FDX was not a big topic on any booth. I don't even think I saw an FDX demo when I went at the booths that I was at. So
how about 204? Did you talk to anyone that's...
Yeah. At the Aris booth, I kind of glossed over those slides. The Aris booth was showing an active 204 well, it wasn't so much a 204 demo, but they were showing, I think, kind of what you were talking about, where you can sort of have a flexible split by using
Yes.
FDX, but it wasn't so much to show the demo of FDX as saying maybe we don't need diplex filters, but we can use the capabilities of FDX to allow us to move the
I
frequency around.
mean, to be perfectly honest, the idea was called static FDX, and I don't like that term because FDX implies full duplex, which means upstream and downstream is on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
The static idea, I think you took it from an appendix of the spec itself. We really should call it flexible upstream downstream. Basically, you're saying that you have an upstream and downstream that can be flexible in how you set it. There's no real diplex filter in the amplifier. You put echo cancellation in there that allows the diplex filter to not be like this, but to basically be like this.
Yeah, because I think you mentioned at the show, what is it, 10%?
No, normally a diplex filter is at least 20%.
20%. So the higher in frequency you go, you can explain it. Yeah, go ahead.
Whatever the highest frequency is in your upstream, add 20%. That's the no man's land of the diplex filter. So if we go 200, 20% of 200 is 40 megahertz. That's why we have a 204/254 split, because at least 20%.
40 megahertz of just we've just lost 40 megahertz of our spectrum.
Yeah, because you need that isolation between upstream and downstream of that diplex filter, so you need that much separation.
Yeah.
If you went to 400 megahertz, you need 80 megahertz of diplex filter
Dead
buffer
space.
zone. So now you're eating into even more downstream spectrum, right? And the spec for FDX was 684. 20% of 684 would be 150 megahertz of no man's land, of wasted.
Yep.
So it's like, if I could develop an amplifier that didn't have diplex filters, and I could remotely change that split anytime I want, I would get amplifiers that I could deploy today and do a 204 upstream if I could, because I have CPE out in the field that might support it, the 3.1 modems. Now, granted, you might have to make sure that you bought the right CPE, but it is part of the spec for 3.1. And then later on, if there is a FDX type of CPE that can support more OFDMA, more OFDM on the downstream and upstream, and do the same type of echo cancellation in the modem itself, then I can say, all right, let's change my HFC plant to a 450 megahertz upstream split, because I can eat it into my downstream, or maybe I expanded my downstream to 1.8 gigahertz. So it's how we're in that what's that word for it? We can't decide yet on HFC upgrade because it's analysis paralysis again. Before
I think a lot of operators are struggling. Even go to 85 megahertz, operators are struggling if that's the right thing to do now, or they go to 204 megahertz. That's it's a huge cost. Not just buying the parts, but the man hours involved in going out and making this upgrade. It's a huge decision for any operator to do.
And it'll always come back to, well, if we do all that, why don't we just do fiber to the home? And that'll keep coming up, right?
Yeah, that's also a decision.
And then you're running numbers, and your numbers like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's everything I wanted to cover. Anything you saw at the show that I didn't cover?
I agree with you. The beer flows usually at 3:30, 4 o'clock. So I noticed, like, even our own booth, we didn't have beer, so our booth would get quieter. And I'm like, you know why it is? Because the other booths have beer.
Yeah, you guys are cheap, man. That's sad.
I know.
I never came around your booth at the end of the day.
We had fun in there, but there was no beer. So we go to other people's booths and we get their beer.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a good show. Cologne, Germany is a nice town, nice city. It was great weather. It was a little warm, and then it cooled off, and we had a good time. The booth was, the only thing I complaint I kind of have is SCTE does it right. They schedule show floor and workshops not overlapping so much. Whereas this show, the booth was open, and I'm doing it because I'm selfish here. From 9 to 6.
That's only if you have a booth do you care. Because I didn't care. I could attend the sessions. I spoke at sessions. I could go to the booths whenever I wanted to. I think if you're attending, It's awesome. It's the
I
best of
know.
both worlds. I think it's perfect.
So I'm in the booth from 9 to 6, 2 days in a row, then 9 to 4, I think the third day. I know. And then you have these lull periods with no one's coming through because you know what's happening? They're at the general sessions. They're at
Yeah.
the workshops. And I'm like, why do we have the show floor open if there's no one really walking around? I mean, agreed on your part. It actually makes it less crowded for some people that don't go to the sessions. They get a lot more one-on-one time with me and Jason and the guys in our booth.
Absolutely. I think that from that standpoint it's good because the floor is sometimes really crowded. When the sessions are going on, if you don't want to attend that session, you got really close time with the vendors that you want to talk to. So it's perfect.
I think
Anga does it right. And a special thanks to Karsten and Cotting, who I always work with. They're fantastic and in planning everything and setting up the sessions. They're awesome folks to work with.
You just want to keep getting invited back.
Possibly.
No, it is a good time, but I think next year you and I should schedule a Google Hangout on the show floor somewhere. We'll set up like 2 seats in the middle of the aisle somewhere and start like
we could do that.
Yeah. Who's going to say anything?
We could get away with it.
Yeah, just get a big camera and people will think it's legit.
Yep. All right. So, do you have anything coming up? Are you traveling anywhere or speaking anywhere?
What is going on? Oh, SCTE in it's actually September 30th, October 1st, 2nd, 3rd, whatever it is, in New Orleans. I am moderating one of the panels with Tom Clunan and John Ulm, both of Aris Comscope, on HFC transition into like 25 gig or capacity planning, a topic near to my heart, capacity planning. So I will be moderating your panel, which is good because it's just 2 guys, so they don't have to divvy up 20 minutes apiece. They can at least get 30 minutes apiece, and we're trying to make it that they can intermingle, kind of like you and I used to do, do a presentation as like one big presentation and just intermingle between each other. It breaks it up a little bit more, and I think it'll make a nice cohesive type of presentation and session. So that's on Tuesday, October 1st. Seems like far away, but if you think about it, it's probably only what, 3.5 months?
Yeah, it does go fast. We're getting old, man. Time's going by fast.
I know it. I feel it.
So yeah, I'm going to. I don't know if you're going to the Cable Labs summer conference that's coming up in the first week of August. I think
3rd, 4th, 5th, or something like that.
Yep. And this is the last one that they're having at Keystone. After that, they're going to be moving it to Denver. So last time at Keystone, 9,000 feet.
Are they? Yeah, no kidding. Are they changing the dates as well? Do you know?
I don't know. We'll find out at this one. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll have some people there. And after I saw your fireside chat last year, I said, I think that's the best bang for the buck. I thought that got good traction, good people sitting in. I mean, I quizzed you on about 3 or 4 different questions. I think you moderated Larry Walcott and a couple other guys.
Jason Roop, yeah.
So I thought that was good. And we usually have John Chapman and Alon Bernstein doing maybe one of the workshops in the big hall. But I was supporting a tabletop that really had no one coming by.
That's because you were at the tabletop, John. I'd see you and turn the other way.
It's funny. It's like I was waiting in the back, and then when the beer started coming out, I was close to the beer, so people came out.
No surprise there.
Yeah, no kidding. But that's in a month and a half, 5, 6 weeks. Yeah, beginning of August.
Yeah, I think my phone app for my flight says 50 days or something till it comes. So
gotcha.
It's coming up soon. So, all right. I think we covered it all, John. So thank you so much for your time. Everyone, thanks for watching. Every month we're trying to bring you something good. So if you like what you're watching, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube, hit the notification bell. If you're listening on your podcaster, please keep subscribing. Thanks everyone for your time. Have a great weekend. We're signing off. So long.
All right.